All right, wanted to give some thoughts on the Houston Rockets and specifically their point guard situation. There have been a lot of conversations happening on social media, and I get it, right? I understand the disappointment. Thompson did have some solid points as the point guard last night for the Rockets, but wasn't perfect. There were clearly some flaws, and the same with Sheppard. There have been a lot of overreactions. I think it is way, way, way too early to be worried about this. One thing that we have to understand with Houston is that on top of them trying to contend, they're still developing some players, right? This is still a team. While they're a contending team, they still have some very young pieces that are trying to grow. Thompson is not a fully developed basketball player just yet, especially at the point guard position. Same with Sheppard. He is just in his second year and did not have a lot of playing time last year in his rookie season. So we have to understand that with the Rockets, right? On top of them being a team that has high expectations, we also have to understand there are going to be some points in time where there are some learning curves, especially with trying to understand and play the point guard position. Thompson is not a traditional point guard, right? Sheppard is more of a traditional point guard, but again, did not have a lot of reps in his rookie year. So I'm not a fan of the overreactions to the entire Rockets point guard situation. On top of that, what we saw last night with the issues from Sheppard and Thompson is exactly why Kevin Durant is here. Flat out, right? If you're having issues with Sheppard or Thompson, you can go back to Kevin Durant and have him initiate and orchestrate offense to try to fix some things, right? They were able to stay in the game because Kevin Durant at points in time was reliable as kind of a bailout guy if Thompson or Sheppard got in trouble and they weren't able to find any rhythm offensively. Kevin Durant was able to clean up and pick up the slack. That is why he is here. That is why he is an upgrade over Jalen Green. That is the exact reason why you invest in a superstar like KD. Sengun as well was solid from a standpoint of being able to just make things happen in seemingly empty possessions. That is why you have these two stars on the team. I do wonder though how much that is going to be a commonality this season of having to fall back on Durant and Sengun as primary playmakers, especially Durant, right? I wonder how many times this season they're going to fall back on Durant acting as an orchestrator and lead initiator on offense, because that is a very underrated skill set of Durant. If you look at him back in his time in OKC, he did do a lot of stuff as a point guard here and there. Look at the 2013 playoffs where Russ got hurt and Durant was doing a lot of distributing and initiating the offense for Oklahoma City. That is something that has been in his bag for a while. He is an underrated passer and playmaker. So with Sheppard and Thompson developing, I do wonder just how much we'll see possessions of Kevin Durant bringing the ball up court and setting up the offense. They went to him later in the game to do that. I wish they would have done it a bit earlier. There were a lot of times in that first game where I was watching and pleading for them to give the ball to Kevin Durant. So I wonder how much Durant is going to take on the load as a primary playmaker and offensive orchestrator. And I think it makes sense as Thompson and Sheppard are going to have issues as these younger point guards. One thing I am curious about is how long are we going to get this entire Sengun and Steven Adams big man pairing, right? Like I feel like the idea of it was cool and people were raving about it on the broadcast, how big that lineup was, but doesn't make long-term sense from an offensive standpoint. Those guys are traditionally not amazing shooters. And I know Sengun did have a great night from three last night, and that is something he's looking to get better at, but how sustainable is that going to be moving forward for this Rockets offense? I felt like at times it disrupted spacing, and I do wonder again just how much it makes sense from an offensive standpoint for a team looking to make an offensive leap. And I get it. It's early. You experiment. That's what teams are going to do early on in the season. But I did have questions about that. And I wonder how long that's actually going to be a thing Houston goes with. And I do know there are benefits that both of those guys bring, right? Sengun is amazing offensively as a hub, and Adams is an amazing rebounder, especially offensively. But does that fit make sense with those two guys together? Because essentially the Rockets starting lineup has three non-shooters. Adams, Sengun, and Thompson traditionally through their careers are not strong shooters. They could be, especially with Sengun and Thompson, but right now they aren't. So how much does that lineup and that fit between Sengun and Adams, how much is that going to be a part of their offense moving forward into the rest of the season? All in all, I think it is way too early to panic about Houston. We know Thompson and Sheppard are young. Thompson is new to the point guard position, or at least being a full-time point guard. He was thrust into that role. That is traditionally what Fred VanVleet does. So I'm not overreacting too early to them, and I think it is unfair to do that. But there are still a few questions. But again, it's just one game in. Definitely not time just yet to worry about the Rockets and what their entire season is going to look like. There still is a world where they're contenders. I don't think it's fair after one game to say they're not. But there are a few more questions for them to answer. But they have 81 more games to do that.